They were brilliant. They battled the best.
Jorge Lorenzo is going to win the race here.
But for one reason or another, you don't hear their names shouted nearly as loud.
Bridgestone just in front of him, but look at Hayden on the inside. Hayden coming through.
Welcome to our countdown of the 10 most underrated MotoGP legends from the past. Today, we dig into the stories behind faces who might not be in every highlight reel, but whose talent shaped entire seasons. You'll meet the guy who denied Rossi by just 0.002 seconds, the wildcard teenager who nearly won at Suzuka, and make sure you stick around for our #1 most underrated rider. We would like to know if you agree with us. But first, while we get into this, tell me in the comments, who do you think is the most underrated MotoGP rider, and why? I'll feature the best answer in a future video. Let's fire this up. Number 10. Shinya Nakano. Smooth, stylish, and technical. In 2004, he scored Kawasaki's first MotoGP-era podium at Motegi. But more than that, Nakano became the benchmark for making difficult bikes look good. He was the rider who engineers trusted to give clean, precise feedback. He didn't have Rossi's charisma or Biaggi's fire. But inside the paddock, Nakano was respected deeply for his craft. His 5th place at Assen 2006, carrying insane corner speed on a struggling bike, is still remembered by fans who know. Underrated because he lacked the hype machine, but his peers knew his true worth. Number 9. Randy de Puniet. Spectacular and frustrating in equal measure, he was a qualifying star, often dragging customer Hondas into the top 6 on Saturdays. And when he stayed upright, he was capable of magic. His podiums at Motegi 2007 and Donington 2009 proved that. But his crash rate became infamous. So much so that he became a running joke among fans. And yet, those who laughed forgot that when he got it right, Randy was blisteringly quick. Underrated because inconsistency overshadowed his raw speed. And maybe, just maybe, with a factory bike, his career could have been very different. Number 8. Olivier Jacques. The 2,250cc world champion who delivered one of MotoGP's greatest underdog stories. The moment? Shanghai, 2005, on the Kawasaki, starting 15th in torrential rain. Against Rossi, Biaggi, and the best in the world, Jacques carved through the field to finish 2nd. It remains Kawasaki's best-ever MotoGP finish. It wasn't a fluke. Jacques had always been brilliant in difficult conditions, and that day, everything aligned. The podium wasn't just a career highlight for him, it gave Kawasaki legitimacy as a contender. Jacques never found season-long consistency in MotoGP, but his Shanghai ride is still replayed today as one of the great wet-weather masterclasses. Underrated because people forget that a single ride can inspire a whole factory. Number 7. Norick Abe. The rebel from Tokyo who lit up the sport with raw courage. In 1994, as an 18-year-old wildcard at Suzuka, Abe led the 500cc race against Duhan and Schwantz. He slid out just 3 laps from the finish, but that ride changed his life. Kenny Roberts Sr. himself demanded that Yamaha sign the kid immediately. Abe went on to race full-time, racking up 3 wins and 17 podiums. His maiden victory came at Suzuka in 1996, poetic justice at the very circuit where he first stunned the paddock. He also won at Rio in 1999 and Suzuka again in 2000. Abe's style was wild, reckless, unpredictable, sometimes inconsistent, but always thrilling. He never had the full factory support or luck to mount a title run. Injuries and crashes held him back, but his fearlessness made him unforgettable. Rossi even nicknamed himself Rossi Fumi after Abe, a tribute that says it all. Underrated because in an era of polished champions, Abe was pure rock and roll. He showed that sometimes a single race can define a career, and that bravery matters as much as trophies. Number 6. Makoto Tamada. Japan's Bridgestone secret weapon. In 2004, Tamada stunned the paddock with victories at Motegi and Rio, riding the Pons Honda. These weren't just wins, they were proof that Bridgestone tires could challenge Michelin dominance. That tire war changed everything. Without Tamada, Bridgestone might not have built the confidence that later helped Casey Stoner to his 2007 title with Ducati. Tamada wasn't a title threat himself, but his results accelerated a shift in MotoGP's competitive balance. He also grabbed podiums at places like Mugello and Estoril, showing he wasn't just a one-track specialist. But without consistent top machinery, he couldn't stay at the sharp end long-term. Underrated because history often remembers champions, not the catalysts. But Tamada's victories lit the spark for a new era of tire wars. Number 5. Carlos Checa. The quiet soldier who always delivered more than his machinery should allow. Checa spent nearly a decade in the premier class, riding for Yamaha, Honda, and Ducati. He wasn't flashy, but he was fast, smooth, consistent, and fearless in the wet. In 2002, he stood on the podium during Yamaha's debut of the YZR M1, proving he could adapt to the four-stroke era. His problem? Timing. In his prime, he was often stuck in mid-pack teams. Injuries also hampered his momentum, but whenever conditions leveled the playing field, especially in rain, Checa would remind everyone just how good he was. And when he moved to World Superbikes later, he finally got a competitive bike under him. And in 2011, he became world champion. That title was proof of what many had suspected all along. Carlos Checa was world-class, just never in the right place at the right time in MotoGP. Underrated because people remember the lack of titles, not the talent that was always there. Number 4. Marco Melandri. Fast, flamboyant, but cursed by timing. In 2005, he finished runner-up in the championship, with wins in Turkey and Valencia. His Istanbul win, overtaking Rossi on the final lap, remains one of the gutsiest moves of the decade. But Melandri's career was plagued by missteps. His Yamaha years showed promise, but his move to Ducati in 2008 was disastrous. The Desmosedici didn't suit his style at all, and his confidence crumbled. Injuries also robbed him of rhythm. Yet when things clicked, Melandri was sensational. Aggressive overtakes, relentless determination. He was one of the few who could really take it to Rossi at his peak. Underrated because inconsistency masked his raw brilliance. On the right day, Marco Melandri was as fast as anyone. Number 3. Toni Elías. The man who pulled off one of the most shocking results in MotoGP history. At Estoril in 2006, he beat Rossi to the line by 0.002 seconds. One of the closest finishes ever.
Wins! Toni Elías has won the race. Oh my golly!
That single race had championship implications. Rossi lost the title that year by only 5 points to Hayden.
My situation in the championship was quite desperate because I have 2 races to go and Niki have a good advantage.
Without Elias's win, Rossi would have been champion. Later, Elías went on to become the inaugural Moto2 world champion in 2010, proving his all-round talent. But his MotoGP career was short, leaving him remembered mostly for that Estoril moment. Underrated because one flash of brilliance overshadowed a full career of solid results. But in truth, Elías was a giant killer. Number 2. Alex Barros. Brazil's Ironman. Over 17 seasons, Barros collected 7 wins and 32 podiums, competing across multiple eras, from Rainey and Duhan to Rossi and Stoner. Barros was never a champion, but he was always a threat. He could adapt to 2 strokes, then 4 strokes, and still deliver results. His 2002 victory at Valencia, beating the dominant Rossi on equal machinery, was one of his finest hours. Underrated because he flew under the radar of superstar narratives. But ask anyone in the paddock, and they'll tell you Barros was one of the toughest rivals you could face. Number 1. Sete Gibernau. A Spaniard whose name still echoes among deep-cut MotoGP fans. Let's rewind to 2003. Sete, aboard the Telefonica Movistar Gresini RC 211V Honda, put together one of the strongest non-championship seasons ever. He grabbed 4 wins: South Africa, France, Netherlands, Germany, 5 second places, and a third in Barcelona, racking up 277 points, the second highest total ever by a non-champion. That year was emotional. His first victory at Welcome in South Africa came just weeks after the tragic loss of his teammate Daijiro Kato. 7 dedicated that win to Kato, carrying his number 74 on his bike. From that point, he wasn't just racing for himself, he was carrying the spirit of a fallen friend. 2004 was another knife-edge season. He took 4 wins again: Spain, France, Czech Republic, Qatar, 4 second places, and 5 poles. And who can forget the Jerez showdown?
And just a few corners to go, but Rossi in trouble and he almost runs it off the track. Rossi drags it back round and Gibernau's made it through.
Last corner, last lap.
Rossi trying to get up the inside. He's got up the inside. They've collided. Gibernau's gone off into the gravel.
Rossi lunged up the inside, they touched, and Sete went wide. Rossi took the win. Sete took fury. And that moment sparked debates that still live on today. Did Rossi go too far, or was it just hard racing? Let me know what you think in the comments. That one's still divisive. So why underrated? Because he was always just behind Rossi. Not by miles, but by inches. And in the golden era of MotoGP, that meant your name got overshadowed. But those who watched closely knew Gibernau was the one rider who proved Rossi wasn't invincible. That's our list of 10 MotoGP riders who didn't always get the spotlight, but still gave us some of the coolest moments ever. Now, I want to hear from you. Did I miss someone? Who's the most underrated rider you can think of? Tell me in the comments, and thanks for watching.